All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Network. My name's Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. We're going to be talking some Indianapolis Colts football today, trying to figure out if this offense can take a step forward with Daniel Jones under center now. To help us do that, we got Kevin Brown from 107.5 The Fan. How's it going on today, Kevin?
Hey, Joe, doing well, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. This is 32 of 32 for these training camp check-ins. I'm pumped to get them all done here. So let's rock and roll here. So right off the bat, quarterback, battle at camp was decided a few days ago. Daniel Jones was listed as the starting quarterback. Do you think that was the right decision for this Colts team?
I guess it depends with which lens you want to look at it from. If you're looking at long-term and clarity on your franchise quarterback, probably not. But if you're trying to save your job and you're all about self-preservation with Shane Steichen, then yeah, I can see why he did it. I just don't think in the AFC these types of quarterbacks work in today's climate. I think it's one of the most loaded the conference has ever been at quarterback depth-wise and youth-wise. I mean, Mahomes is the grandpa of the group, and he's not even 30 or maybe just turned 30. So, it's just pretty impressive, just the legit depth in this conference. You look at the Band-Aids, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, those all have worked in the NFC. AFC, I just think it's a different animal. So, they are banking on so much around of Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor in that run game, obviously Tyler Warren's presence, and so on and so forth. And I get that Richardson certainly hasn't given you reason to hand him those keys, but if you're going to have that project, I think you kind of see it out after this first healthy offseason. But they are opting with Daniel Jones with certainly, major hot seat implications on the line there for their head coach and GM.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been I get the enticing, Anthony Richardson is what the upside he's got there, but I struggle to see how he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL when he's he barely complete 50% of his passes. That's going to be a concern. You mentioned hot seat there. Like, how much of a leash do you think Daniel Jones is going to have?
Well, yeah, I think they will definitely give him a good chunk of time. I don't think you make a decision like that and just bench him after 2 weeks like they did Joe Flacco last year. They bench Richardson initially. They threw Flacco out there for 2 weeks, and then boom, back to Richardson. I'd be surprised if the leash is that short. But, again, hot seat wise, I mean, this is year 9 for their GM. This is year 3 for Shane Steichen. Mm-hmm. They haven't won a division title in those 9 years. They've only won one playoff game, and the quarterback position has been such a big door. So, that's probably where I point more to the hot seat, leash-wise for Jones. No, I don't. I think he's at least going to get September. And, because once you turn to Richardson, there's no real, you're kind of committing to him for the rest of the year at that point. Certainly, if you did a poll with Colts fans, I think, they've seen this type of quarterback. And that's probably a bit unfair to Daniel Jones. Whether it's Jacoby Brissett, whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Gardner Minshew, whether it's Matt Ryan, whether it's Carson Wentz, so on and so forth. The Colts have attempted this cerebral Band-Aid type of QB a lot since Luck, shocked the world 6 years ago. So I think that's probably where some of the disdain comes from too with the fan base.
Yeah, fair enough. So over here to the running back position, Jonathan Taylor is obviously the guy. He's going to be the workhorse there in my eyes. Has there anybody that's emerged behind him as somebody who can be, a good number 2?
Yeah, I have not seen that. I'll be very curious how they handle those reps. DJ Giddens for a 5th-round pick, I thought had a really impressive resume coming out of Kansas State. And he definitely showed some flashes and was healthy throughout training camp. But, I'm curious how they're going to divvy up those reps. I would guess it's Giddens early on. I don't see a 3rd down back, like a primary 3rd down back. I still have questions with Taylor's hands. But there's by no means is there some sort of, hey, this is your 3rd down back. Tyler Goodson got hurt in camp. I actually thought he was flashing a little bit. So we'll see what his availability looks like for the start of the season. And Khalil Herbert also, was someone that, had some veteran background, and he's a guy that got banged up a little bit late in camp. So again, I'll be curious to see how they divvy up those reps behind him. But the days of like Nyheim Hines here, if you remember that, I mean, that's not really something that I see in the cards given their personnel. But to me, Giddens is an intriguing guy. Battled the wrist injury at Kansas State, and do you just fully trust a rookie in that role?
Yeah. So you're thinking this is probably like very heavy JT in the backfield for most of the reps here.
Yeah, I mean, he had the second most carries, I think, per game in the league behind Barkley. I mean, I see no reason why that would change. And with Jones, yes, he can move a little bit, but you would think he's probably going to give it to Taylor a little bit more than Richardson would, on those
Mm-hmm.
RPO stuff. So yes, I would fully expect a heavy dose of number 28.
All right. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, they've been banged up, off and on throughout their career, even this offseason so far. When they're healthy, has either one looked like they might potentially break out finally? Pittman kind of did a couple years ago, I feel like, but it just feels like he never took that like step that we all thought he would.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way to put it. Honestly, I don't know if I touch too many of the Colts wideouts. I think it'll be a very balanced group. Pittman battled the back injury last year pretty bad and still had 800 yards given that quarterback play. Josh Downs we'll see where his week 1 availability is coming back from a hamstring injury. I think has the ability, if healthy, to be a consistent slot presence. Think of the 6 for 60 sort of thing. And, Jones really found those guys in New York. And then Alec Pierce is one of the more fascinating, probably fantasy prospects out there of, he might get 3 targets a game, but if it's 2 for 62 and a touchdown, you can live with that. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's him. I mean, that's what he led the league in receiving yards per catch last season. So, again, they're a very balanced group. A.D. Mitchell is one that they're intrigued by. But again, how do you get a 4th wideout reps? And then you say all those names and you throw in Tyler Warren, who I think they will use a ton. And I think they'll get the ball to him in a variety of ways. And I haven't said draft a Colts tight end in fantasy at all in recent years. And I think this is definitely the year to do that and do it relatively early.
Yeah. So you mentioned Daniel Jones and the fact that he can find those guys. You mentioned Downs. I mean, and then you mentioned, Alec Pierce and like the deep ball threat that he's got. Like Jones is notorious for like check down, which is why Barkley went off for like 100 catches his rookie year. Right. Do you see him trying to change that up at all and getting Pierce and Mitchell, more involved in those deep downfield passes, or is it still going to be Pittman over the middle, Downs, the slot type of thing?
Yeah, I think we have to wait and see with Jones in the deep ball. I think we've seen it occasionally this offseason, but doing it in a game setting, that's never been his career. I mean, that's the back of the baseball card would tell you no on that. But again, Pierce, I can think of a play last week at practice with Xavier Howard coming back and, him and Pierce one-on-one and, pre-snap, I thought to myself, oh boy, what a great matchup. Howard hasn't played football in a year. Where is he at right now? Pierce, this is what he can do. And then can Jones get Pierce the ball? And Pierce, got by Howard pretty easily and boom, Jones put it to him in stride. And again, it's a 40, 50-yard play, over there at their team complex. Will that be there, come a week from Sunday and so on and so forth. So that to me remains to be seen. If there's one area, I think, Downs and Warren probably benefit more from Jones versus Richardson, but with, Pierce, does he get those chances? Now, again, I don't think it's like a shot arm. I don't think this is Matt Ryan by any means. I think Daniel Jones still has that ability, but it's the willingness and I guess, I don't know, the desire to try it in games.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, guy barely has double-digit touchdowns in some seasons, so there you go. You mentioned Tyler Warren, obviously the star tight end rookie here. What have you seen from him in camp that makes you optimistic for his rookie season?
Well, I mean, he's probably the most decorated tight end from a single season in college football at the end of the league, maybe ever. And, if you watch Penn State, they definitely use him in a variety of ways. I mean, there was no hesitation in moving him all around. And, I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, for example. And I remember watching the Orange Bowl and thinking to myself, it was such a relief when he didn't touch the ball or like they didn't get it to him. I was like, thank the Lord that they're not, peppering him with the football. So, even if you go back and watch that preseason opener against Baltimore, I think he had 3 catches in that game. Maybe a 4th was called back, I think, for a legal man downfield. And I remember walking away from that game, and people were like, man, that was my first, exposure to him. Wow, he looked great. I'm like, I can think of another 4 ways they've tried to get him the ball already in camp. And I think they're going to do some of the short yardage creative stuff too with him. I'm not saying he's full on wildcat like he was at Penn State, but he obviously did that, and he threw a few passes at Penn State. So I think when you add it all up, I fully expect him to be a frequently targeted guy, and again, utilize him in different ways in short yardage, red zone, goal line, etc. So I would draft him.
Yeah, my wife's a Penn State fan, so I watched plenty of Tyler Warren last season and was thoroughly impressed every single time. Dude's a monster, so I totally understand the optimism there. So I ask this to everybody who comes on here. Who's an under-the-radar player on this team? Somebody, casuals outside of Indianapolis, may not be super familiar with, that us fantasy managers should keep in our back pocket.
Yeah, I would I'll go back to the name of A.D. Mitchell. He's a second-round pick out of Texas, 2 years ago. If you watched the Colts last year, no issue getting open. It was finishing plays. Not only just drops, but just that timing with whoever it was, Richardson and Flacco. He had issues with both, but he creates separation with the best of them. And his college career was really interesting. I think one of the wilder stats of A.D. Mitchell is he played at Georgia and Texas. He played in 5 college football playoff games, caught a touchdown in all 5 of those games. That's darn impressive on the biggest stage of college football. You catch a touchdown in all of those games. But I think if you added it up, I want to say he only had like 5 other total catches in those games. So it's very, boom or bust, really. Getting in the end zone or not really impacting the game at all from a catch standpoint. And, why does he fall to the 10th or 11th wideout taken in that draft? So, he will need an injury to earn consistent playing time, but he brings a skill set that they don't have in those top 3. So I do think if an injury occurs, and if you trust the quarterback situation, which by no means am I saying do that, then I could see, AD at least. Again, he's got a skill set and a talent that, makes you at least get intrigued. It's just how reliable can he be?
Yeah, definitely a name that I've heard, dynasty leagues, people, very intrigued by him for sure. But yeah, consistency has been a problem. And then of course, obviously the quarterback play is less than desirable, unfortunately, for the Colts lately. So that's not helping his cause at all. But all right, Kevin, thank you for coming on, man. That's all we got. Hopefully everybody learned a lot. I know I did. Before we close out, give you a chance to let everybody know what you've got going on this season, where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I appreciate having me. I co-host a morning radio show here in Indianapolis on the Colts flagship from 7 to 10 a.m. on 107.5 The Fan. So catch me over there and on Twitter at kbowen1070.
All right, sounds good. And if you're still hanging around, hit that subscribe button, that like button, leave those comments. We love to hear from you. Jump over to fantasysixpack.net, become an all-access member, get the award-winning rankings, my draft cheat sheet, player projections during the season, DFS and betting content as well, whole lot more. F6P Pods saves you 15%. And click the playlist button here to check out the rest of these team training camp reports. And see you next time.